April 27, 2011. It was a day that started like any other spring day in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but it would not end that way. The air was thick with the promise of rain, a familiar humidity that hung heavy over the city. People went about their morning routines, heading to work, taking children to school, completely unaware that the hours ahead held a power beyond their comprehension. This day would become a dividing line in the city's history, a moment that would forever separate the world before from the world after. The ordinary rhythm of life was about to be shattered by 10 minutes of unimaginable fury. The weather forecasts had been clear for days. Meteorologists spoke of a particularly dangerous situation, a rare and chilling phrase that signaled the potential for violent, long-track tornadoes. For many, however, these warnings were just background noise, the kind of severe weather alerts that often passed by without incident. It is easy to become accustomed to warnings that do not materialize into disaster. But on this day, the science was precise. The atmospheric ingredients were coming together perfectly, creating a volatile cocktail of wind, moisture, instability. By mid-afternoon, the atmosphere over Tuscaloosa had changed dramatically. The air felt electric, charged with a strange and heavy stillness. The sky was no longer just overcast. It had taken on a sickly, greenish-yellow tint. The first tornado warning for Tuscaloosa County was issued by the National Weather Service. A blaring alert cut through radio programs and scrolled across television screens. For those paying attention, the message was unmistakable. This was not a drill. The threat was no longer distant. It was approaching, and it was real. The city's network of tornado sirens began their haunting, rising and falling wail. The sound echoed through the streets, a mechanical cry for people to seek immediate shelter. For some, the sound triggered an instant, practiced response. Basements, interior closets, bathrooms on the lowest floor. Businesses ushered customers away from windows. Schools still in session moved students into reinforced hallways. Yet for others, there was a moment of hesitation, a dangerous disbelief. The voices of meteorologists on television and radio became the lifeline for thousands. James Spann was on the air, calm, urgent. At approximately 5:10 p.m. Central Daylight Time, the supercell thunderstorm that had been tracking across central Alabama for miles gave birth to a monster. Just southwest of Tuscaloosa, near the community of Holt, a massive wedge-shaped funnel descended from the churning wall cloud. It touched the ground with ferocious intensity, immediately scouring the earth and growing in size and power. This was no fleeting, rope-like tornado. This was an EF4, a violent vortex with winds estimated up to 190 miles per hour. It began its northeastward march aimed directly at the heart of Tuscaloosa. The first areas to feel its wrath were the rural communities, scattered subdivisions south of the Black Warrior River. Trees that had stood for a century were snapped in half like twigs, branches stripped bare, thrown into the swirling debris cloud. Homes were not just damaged, they were obliterated, foundations swept clean. Survivors later described it as the sound of a freight train, except this train was a mile wide, coming through their living rooms. At 5:13 p.m., the EF4 tornado slammed into the western and southern neighborhoods of Tuscaloosa, Rosedale, Alberta City. These were vibrant, established communities filled with homes, small businesses, generations of families. In a matter of seconds, they were transformed into a war zone. Houses seemed to explode as the extreme pressure drop and violent winds hit them. Roofs were peeled back like can lids. Entire upper floors were ripped away, contents exposed to the storm. The destruction was not selective. Brick homes were reduced to piles of rubble. Wood frame houses, too. Cars were picked up and hurled like toys. Trucks, too. Some tossed hundreds of feet, mangled into unrecognizable shapes of twisted metal. The air was a thick brown soup of dirt, insulation, wood splinters, personal belongings. Family photographs, children's toys, pieces of clothing were sucked into the vortex, destined to be found miles away, a heartbreaking testament to the lives that had been upended in an instant. Inside their homes, people clung to one another in the dark, a mother in a bathtub, covering her children with her own body, a college student huddled in a closet, an elderly couple holding hands in their basement as the floor above vanished. The roar was all-encompassing, a physical pressure that vibrated through every bone. For many, it was the last sound they would ever hear. The path of the Tuscaloosa tornado was a study in brutal efficiency. It stayed on the ground for over 80 miles, but its 5.9-mile journey through Tuscaloosa defined its legacy. The path was up to 1.5 miles wide in places, an immense footprint that left very little standing. It moved northeast, cutting a diagonal line across the city, impacting a wide cross-section of communities: low-income housing, student apartments, established middle-class neighborhoods, commercial districts. No part of the city it touched was spared. Block after block, street after street, a landscape of total devastation. Over 12% of the city was damaged or destroyed. More than 7,000 structures were impacted. Thousands completely leveled, like a giant eraser dragged across a map, wiping away homes, businesses, schools, churches. The tornado's power debarked trees, stripped leaves, branches, bark, leaving ghostly trunks. We came out of the basement, and our house was gone. The whole neighborhood was gone. The storm altered the landscape, leaving a scar visible from space for months. Section 6. Voices in the Ruins. Stories of Survival. When the roar finally subsided, an eerie and unnatural silence fell over the ruined landscape. It was a silence broken only by the drip of water, the hiss of broken gas lines, and soon, the first human sounds: cries for help. From under piles of rubble, from the skeletons of homes, and from the darkness of basements, the survivors began to emerge. They were dazed, bloodied, and in shock, stepping out into a world they no longer recognized. One story is that of a young mother who had gathered her 2 small children into an interior bathroom. As the tornado hit, she laid on top of them in the bathtub, pulling a mattress over them, as she had been taught. She described the house lifting, the walls exploding, the intense, sucking pressure. When it was over, they were lying in the open air. The bathroom was the only part of the house left. Her actions had saved their lives. I just held on to them. I just kept saying, "It's okay, it's okay," even when I knew it wasn't. Elsewhere, a group of college students survived in a small closet. When they opened the door, they saw only sky. The top 2 floors were gone. They had been inside a small, protected box at the heart of a vortex of complete destruction, and against all odds, they survived. These stories, and thousands like them, are a testament to resilience and powerful lessons in disaster preparedness. In case after case, the survivors were those who heeded warnings and went to the safest possible place: a basement, a storm shelter, or a small interior room on the lowest level. Section 7. The Aftermath. A city in silence. In the first minutes and hours after the tornado passed, a sense of stunned disbelief hung over Tuscaloosa. The scale of the destruction was overwhelming. Survivors walked through the wreckage of their own lives, searching for family, neighbors, pets. The familiar landmarks were gone. Street signs had vanished, splintered wood, twisted metal, and shattered remnants of homes and businesses. First responders, police, firefighters, paramedics were on the scene almost immediately, but hampered. Downed trees and debris blocked their path. The loss of communications made coordination a monumental challenge, yet they pushed forward, triaging the wounded, performing search and rescue, putting out fires. They were soon joined by an army of ordinary citizens. Neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers helped strangers. Digging with their bare hands, calling out for anyone who might be trapped. You just do what you can. You just start digging. You just start looking. You have to. In Tuscaloosa alone, 53 people lost their lives, and over 1,200 were injured. As night fell, the disaster's scope revealed itself in stark detail. With power out, the only light came from emergency flashers, flashlights, and smoldering fires. The sounds were generators, chainsaws, and the distant wail of sirens. It was a city wounded, in shock, facing a terrifyingly uncertain future. The 10 minutes were over, but the ordeal had just begun. Section 8. Rising from the rubble, the long road to recovery. The morning of April 28th dawned on a city that looked like it had been bombed. But with the light came a new wave of determination. Rescue transitioned into massive recovery and relief. Help poured in from across the state, the nation, and even the world. The National Guard arrived to secure areas and clear roads. FEMA and aid organizations set up command posts to coordinate distribution. Water, food, medicine. The spirit of the community became its strongest asset. Volunteers, the Bama Nation, descended by the thousands. University students stayed to help. Debris clearing crews worked non-stop. Shelters were staffed, supplies handed out. Neighbors salvaged what they could, side by side. The tornado could destroy buildings, but not the community. We lost our house. We didn't lose each other. Clearing millions of cubic yards of debris would take months. Engineers assessed. Demolition crews removed what couldn't be saved. Rebuilding homes and businesses began. City government, federal partners, and community leaders created Tuscaloosa Forward to build back smarter, stronger, more resilient, rebuilding lives as well as structures. Section 9. Lessons carved in memory. The 2011 Tuscaloosa tornado was a catastrophic event, a stark and brutal reminder of the awesome power of nature. From its tragic legacy, powerful lessons emerged. Heed warnings, be prepared. Have a weather radio, pay attention to alerts, have a designated safe place. These are not abstract suggestions. They are concrete actions that save lives. Tuscaloosa's recovery became a model for resilient design. Building codes strengthened. Community storm shelters added. Emergency response plans and communications were made more robust and redundant. The memory of April 27th is built into the city's new infrastructure. We remember what we lost, and we honor them by building a safer future. Perhaps the most enduring lesson is the strength of the human spirit. The compassion, the selflessness, the determination to help one another. Today, more than a decade later, Tuscaloosa is a city reborn. New homes stand where rubble once lay. Businesses have reopened. Trees have been replanted, but the city has not forgotten. Memorials stand as quiet, permanent reminders of lives lost and the day that changed everything. The scar has faded, but the lessons are carved into collective memory, a promise to those lost, and a guide for generations to come. We remember those lost. We honor those who helped. We learn and prepare for the future.